Just remind us the importance of the Maharal in Jewish history.
Oh, Maharal. Maharal was, I discussed to daven by his kever in Prague and go to daven in the shul.
Is that where he made the golem?
That's where he was based. You know, they said the golem was first hidden in the attic of the Alder Shul and he moved it to a different shul. A lot of stories about that. But anyway, the Maharal was a tremendous leader, Manik of Israel in those times. He lived a long time. It's a machlokes about how long he lived, but some say he lived over 90. And he spanned a tremendous, period of time. There was a lot of things were happening. Prague was like a center of Yiddishkeit, and a lot of stuff going on there. And he was able to bridge the gap. I mean, he had a lot of contact with the secular scholars who were also, big intellectuals, a very active intellectual community in Prague at that time. So he was in touch with them as well as being really the top of the Jewish community as well. He was very strong in his opinions and his positions on matters. And he had a close relationship with the king also, with the nobility, and so he was very involved in community matters. In community matters, that the whole Mice of the Goylem reflects that involvement in the protection of the community. So that was a very big thing. And then also he managed to remember he was at almost the time of the Arizal. And
he was Arizal's cousin.
What?
The Arizal was his uncle. He was the Arizal's uncle or something.
Really? That I never heard.
Yeah, they were related in some way.
Really?
From the Ashkenaz side.
Really? I'm wondering if exactly how much contact does he have, because I've been always trying to figure out who he got his Kabbalah from. Whereas he he hides it in most of his form. He brings down Zoyas here and there, but he doesn't. And somebody who knows Kabbalah can see the Kabbalah behind a lot of what he was talking about, but he doesn't. He's not too open about it, and he doesn't quote.
Publicly accepted by the community?
Sure. He was
he didn't treat
he was
it
the
like
Rambam.
His books or anything. It wasn't like
No, not at all.
It's interesting because you say that he doesn't always. His work is very hidden, and a lot of the stuff he doesn't bring down sources. A lot of times, the Jewish communities were very skeptical about individuals coming out and bringing light to Torah. They don't really know.
I think it was. I mean, you can't compare it with the Rambam. The Rambam. A lot of his nagdus to him were two reasons, basically, during his lifetime. I mean, it was, I would say, a frustration for scholars after him that he didn't bring down sources too much. So it was very hard to trace where he got stuff from. But I don't think that was the Iker nagdus. There was a nagdus, the fact that he put together a code at all. The codification of law was his own Kiddush. So that was the thing that a lot of people resisted.
Really, I was under the impression that he had a pretty hard, rough life with being accepted largely by the community. They would burn his books and
it wasn't stam books. It was the major two things that might have riled people up were the Mora Nevuchim.
With the what?
The Mora Nevuchim.
Yeah.
That was, and I'm no expert on the Rambam, but
that was one of the problems with the Rambam, that he didn't always quote sources.
Right.
So people either had to just go search themselves and find out where he's bringing down, and sometimes he didn't bring down a source, sometimes he was just expressing his own opinion, but in the way it was written, there was a little bit, they were skeptical, like, okay, who is coming to say some
I'm sure it's true to some extent, but on the other hand, he was acknowledged as a leader of his generation. The very fact that the Igeres Teiman and all the different communities from around the world sent him shilas, so it wasn't like that was. But I think a lot of to my knowledge, a lot of the Isnagus was because they didn't like the whole idea of coming to Yad Chazukah was a big kiddush. Just the very fact that he's codifying everything into an organized thing that was never done before.
And maybe because he was a Sephardi.
That's where he was. He started out in Spain and then he went to Egypt. So he had a very big public role as an advisor to the king and to the position of the king. So anyway, I don't want to get too much involved with the Rambam here because but the Maharal was not that type anyway. He wasn't mechadish anything in particular. This is what he did was, and the fact that he didn't bring down sources was not in terms of halacha. So halacha, you really need to know sources. In terms of the kinds of things, hashkafa, he's talking about, he didn't have to bring sources. But what I'm saying is that he spans so many different areas of knowledge, both in terms of secular knowledge, in terms of philosophy, and in terms of. It's interesting that the Ramu, who was also close to that time a little later, was also that type. If you look at, you wrote a sefer called HaGolah.
The Ramu is the Ramah?
The Ramah, the Moshe Yisrael. So he put out a sefer called HaGolah, which also combines philosophy and Kabbalah and Hashkafa and Medrash and everything all into one. A huge, just a tremendously, you had minds like that at that time. So anyway, so what I'm talking about this sefer in particular is that his goal here was there were people in his generation that were challenging the Rabbanan. And unfortunately, I've been seeing it a little bit in Sfas lately. There's individuals that are questioning, the Rabbanan and what does it mean, the thing that is the Rabbanan, how did they work, and where did they get it from, and questioning things instead of just accepting it. And what he was dealing with is that there were a lot of intellectuals in his time that were, I'm assuming they were, from Yidden, but they were questioning, and he goes down in the end of the Hakdama, he talks about the specific things that he's targeting, the objections that people had to various things of Rabbanan, and how he answers them. And it's not just apologetics. It's a question of really showing in a very strong and focused way how the Rabbanim worked and what their system was, and explain the way that we have to respect it and understand the level that they were dealing with. And the Hakdama itself was focusing on a medrash which talks about just the huge gap between our seichel and the seichel of the Chachamim, in the types of the Tanuim and this kind of thing. What they were dealing with, their whole seichel was operating at a whole different level than ours. So therefore, before you start questioning such things, you have to look very deeply into it and try to see what the kavanah of the Rabbanim are before you start, being skeptical about certain things they said.
I mean, it's two different kinds of questioners. I think there's one question that a person will ask to raise doubt, which is not a good kind of questioner because they're not really looking for truth, they're looking just to cause a stir. And there's other one who's a questioner who's actually seeking truth,
right, exactly.
which is different.
That's very true.
It's
very true. The thing is that what it comes down to, and they say this in terms of learning Kabbalah as well, that when a person has a suffix, a shaila, if he's truly looking for an answer, it's because he realizes that whatever he doesn't understand is a kasur in himself. It's some kind of a lack that he's not even understanding. Because if he was on the level to understand these things, he would have a clarity and he'd be able to really, see. He wouldn't have a shaila to begin with. But because he's not on the level, so he has to ask somebody to explain it to him. Whereas if a person assumes that he is on a very high intellectual level, when we see something he doesn't understand, he questions whether it's valid at all. And then, so it goes down to. So he comes down here and he talks about that the biggest mila that we have is that we're willing to admit that we have a chassid. Once we admit that it's our lack as opposed to the lack of in the Chacham itself. So I just want to go through the first part fairly quickly because I already learned this last week with Rav Amram. So now we're going to go into a little more depth. I'm very fortunate that the Machon Yerushalayim has come up with a whole, which I think they may have completed the whole set of the Rambam. Huge number of items.
The Rambam or the
And so they have copious notes here, which they basically are taking things from other places in the Maharal, which explain what he's saying here. And because there's a lot of consistency throughout his forum. His forum deal with certain. It boils down to a certain method that he has in terms of how he treats his subject matter, and that's pretty consistent. So it's you can bring a lot of cross references. It's very interesting. So at least for the first half, we'll just kind of go through it quickly, and then we'll get into more depth. So he says, that the completeness of the person in his knowledge and comprehension of reality. First, he has to understand himself. The first stage in being able to approach a subject and really understand it completely is to understand who you are and where you're coming from in relation to what you're learning. You shouldn't be a fool in terms of the way he conceives of himself. It's not easy to come to that. It requires a great deal of honesty, self-honesty and self-understanding to be able to understand where you're coming from. Understand what level you're holding on. The fact is that really it should be the closest thing of all is to know yourself, because you're the closest thing to yourself. But really there's all kinds of biases that because that a person wants to be malam himself, it gets in the way. Most people approach this in the opposite, like the reverse of what it really is. He's going to approach the works of the Rishonim, of the first. It doesn't mean Rishonim in terms of the period of Rishonim. He's talking about the early scholars, the sages, of the past. He's going to say, well, I also understand. I have a heart. They have a heart. I'm a human being. They're a human being. They were just human beings, right? I'm also a human being, so I can understand what they're doing. So that's the way a person approaches it. He would say that the early days aren't any better than they are than the days today. We're on the same level. This is all from the same sefer, the same creator created everybody. And it all comes from the same source. It's all part of the human race. We all have that in common, right? And they're making a big mistake by thinking in those terms. A real chacham knows who he really is. He's not gonna be swayed by some kind of shochet. Even he's going to be able to it's kind of a Greek expression here. So I'll explain that here. They will evaluate. They didn't. They were very exact in the way they dealt with their own financial matters. They were very meduic, right? So they did a mishpat in their financial matters, and even more with their bodies, with themselves, right? This is what a chacham is, that he's exact. He's not fooling around. In any kind of evaluations, whether they're financial evaluations or whether they're their own personal evaluations, they're very they don't leave anything out. This is the major. This is the big gadata here that he's going to Maimar Chazal, which he's going to be analyzing. That's what he does. He takes Maimar Chazal and then he analyzes piece by piece, phrase by phrase, exactly what it means. Liban shall be shoinim, and Liban he's talking about not necessarily the heart as we might think of it, but the whole attitude, the whole outlook of the person, this whole inner being. Liban shall be shoinim kapiskel shel ilam. Says that this inner life of theirs, of the Rishonim, the very first scholars, really Tanuim is mainly talking about, was like a piskel shel ilam. It was like the opening of the ilam, of a very large hall. And specifically he's talking, he'll bring it down to the Beis HaMikdash. The shel achroinim kepiskel shel heichal. And then from the achroinim, the later generations, which is a little bit past that, the piskel shel heichal, that was like the opening of the heichal, which is the more the inner chamber of the Beis HaMikdash. The uni kemule machat nekev stukis, and we are like our. This is Rabbi Yochanan talking. He's saying our seichel is like a pinprick, the very smallest possible thing that you can consider.
The opening is like the eye of the needle.
It's even the eye of the needle. The pin of the spitz. Not even the eye of the needle. Rishonim. So who are you talking about? Rishonim is Rabbi Akiva. Achronim is Rabbi Eluzah ben Shemir. And Yikad Amli, Rishonim is Rabbi Eliezer ben Shemir, and the Achronim Rabbi Yoshai ben Ribi. Okay, It's talking about certain scholars that he's referring to. Unika molenacha nekev machat sdukis. Maybe that it's actually saying here he says nekev. Before he said, let me see, explain it. Maybe just talk about yeah, actually it probably is talking about that. Nekev is talking about the hole in the needle. Okay. So Omar Abaya, the Anan kesichsa begidel legamra. He's going to explain about the Gemara. That he's comparing us to a certain type of explain what it is for Gemara. The Omar Rova the Anan keetz bata bekira lesvura. Omar Rashi the Anan keetz bausa bebira leshikha. So basically, it's talking about that Anan kesichsa begidel legamra. It's talking about. It's talking about a certain, like a stake that you punch into a wall with a very narrow. There's a very narrow hole to put it into, and it gets in. It puts into. You've got to force it in with very very hard into that hole. So he says that the same way as that is in the same way that's fitting into a hole it's very difficult to put it in. It's difficult for us to understand what we hear, except for a little bit and with difficulty. And then the next one was the Etzbusa Kira Lisvura. So that's talking about the Gemara. He's talking about being Makabel Chochmah from previous generations, or from what we received. And then the Svura is talking about our own Svuras in terms of how we with our own minds develop explanations for things. So that's like the finger in the wall. That's it's like he says it's like a very hard wax that when you put your finger into it, it makes a certain impression, but it doesn't really go in. It doesn't really penetrate it. And then the guess for the bira l'shikha is like when you put your finger into a boil, like a cistern of water or something, and it's very very wide, and you put the finger in there and you take it right out again. That's how easy it is for us to forget. We forget things very easily. So it's difficult for us to understand, and it's easy for us to forget. He's going to explain that in more detail later. So they weren't afraid to admit their chesurim, what they were lacking. That it's difficult to understand a lot of things, and it's very easy to forget. So they were evaluating themselves in this way. And also, he's going to show that he's talking about how that Rabbi Yochanan was comparing his generation to the previous generation, showing how far below them his generation was. So look now understand how he's evaluating the generations. Okay, so now he's going to really lay down what the difference is. Rishonim were all seichel. They were like completely intellect. The person is composed of a body and a mind, right? If a doyas rishonim, gula,
and a soul.
Yeah, well, he's not talking about that right now. But he's talking about the relationship between the mind and the body. That's what he's talking about. The doyas rishonim gova koyach asichli ala gif. So the earlier generations, the power of the mind was totally subordinated to the goof. The body was subordinated to the mind, totally.
The body was subordinated to it.
Right. The mind was in control. Yeah, completely. It wasn't affected. Emotions is another whole issue.
Master of desires.
Right, you're right. Right. The physical did not make an impression on the and that's a very very important thing because first of all, there's the idea that the body tends to get in the way of intellectual activities because it's taking away from this concept. You sleep and you got to eat and you got to do this and you got to that. So it's always taking away from it. So here he's saying it wasn't a barrier. There was no resistance inside of the goof. That's one thing. The other thing is that the goof is looking to be able to bend things in its favor. It's trying to be mashpia on the mind, to rationalize things and to give it wants. Right, exactly. So it's trying to influence the mind to come over. And unfortunately today you see all kinds of examples of people creating whole philosophies just to justify what they really want to do, what the body wants to do, and they make it into an intellectual thing. It's really coming from the body as opposed to coming from the mind. So it's not coming from the higher source, coming from the lower source. But this is one of the things he's talking about. But it's trying to go back to the that it was in control. The mind was in control. So because their mind was in control, it wasn't being limited by the very, the boundaries of the goof that are inherent in the goof itself. The goof is bound to the physical world and all of its limitations. And sefer is if it's really dovik in the elyonim, if it's really mamish on that, dovik Hashem and to the elyonim, which is limitless. So if it's totally in control, then it is able to expand. It's an amazing, it can encompass an amazing amount. But if it wants the more that's influenced by the goof, the more that's influenced by the physical, the more limited it becomes. Okay. So it had their mind was open. It was very wide, and it was able to makabel all this chacham. They were open to it. There wasn't anything getting in the way. This
is the whole generation, or just the Roshayim, just the chachamim of that generation?
He's talking about chachamim. He's not talking about every Maharal, it's for sure. It's also.
But in proportion to us today.
I'm sure that Maharatzim then was probably on a higher level than we are too. But we're not talking about that.
In relation to the chacham were on a higher level than they had the power to influence the common.
It's probably that everybody was on a higher level. I mean, I heard somebody, but it was a chassid that said that I don't know exactly when he lived, but he said that that a person who's seen an airplane can't really be a chassid.
Person who's seen an
airplane. In other words, compared to the generations that didn't have any technology at all, and they weren't involved with things like that, right? So they weren't spooled from. That's my way I interpret it. They weren't spooled. They weren't amazed by the accomplishments of man and his technological, powers and this kind of thing. So it didn't get in the way. Once people started getting so involved with all the technology and the latest thing, and we can do this and we can do that, and we can control the environment, and it took away from the
but this requires more bittul, more humility to sublimate yourself from this technology.
It's a challenge, right? But unfortunately, very few people have to.
But I wouldn't say it makes a chassid lesser. A true chassid would be.
No, we're talking about the general. We're talking about where the bar is. You know what I mean? In other words, we can't say in terms of who's more chashiv. Okay, so they're talking about that this generation is the most chashiv generation because we have the most challenges, we have the most problems, we have all these things we're bombarding with constantly. So the kinds of nisyonis that we have, the previous generations didn't have to deal with. So of course they were on a higher level to be able to receive. But I'm just saying that what he's saying here is he's not evaluating, he's saying who's better and who's on a higher level. What he's saying here is you have to appreciate that their minds were on a totally different level than our minds. We have a different milas. Hashem wants something different from us. But you have to appreciate what level they were on in order to be makabel from them. Because otherwise we're full of ourselves. And we start to I'm so chushiv, I have all these challenges and I have all these, That's not what we want to be. We want to be on a level that we appreciate what we've been given, from previous generations, and we don't hold ourselves to be high, because then we become just arrogant, and then that gets in the way of being makabel also. The whole thing of Yiddishkeit is because there's an idea that we stood on Har Sinai, and we have the Ovos HaKadoshim, and we have from the Doidus of the Mishnayos and the Gemara and all these things. Our whole Yiddishkeit, our whole being is dependent on being makabel. We have to be able to receive without letting ourselves get in the way and our own ego getting in the way and all of our distractions getting in the way of being able to do the Kabbalah properly. So that's really the level he's talking about here. So the first thing is to establish humility, that we should know where they were holding and where we're holding, and understand it in a psychological way what we're talking about. Okay, so they had this very large kli kibbul that they were able to
expanded
accept
consciousness.
Yeah. Because they didn't have the restrictions of the goof holding the back. So he compares this to a very wide opening. That this opening is made to be able to be receiving. So he compares that to the opening of the ulam. Because the ulam was in the Beis Hamikdash was 20 amas wide.
Ulam is with an aleph. It's not olam.
Ulam, yeah. There was in the Beis Hamikdash there was we went from the Azura to the ulam and then to the heichal and then the Kodesh Kodeshim.
Yes.
Right? So it was like a progressive. So the opening to the ulam was very wide. It was 20 amas wide. So he says. He says that that's not even a normal opening. That's like more than it's double the normal opening. So the normal opening is 10 amas, and this was 20 amas. So that's very, very large.
It's still really wide. 10 amas is like 20 feet, but it's still a very wide opening.
Yeah, right. And it's 40 feet. That's really.
Amma is from the finger to the elbow. No?
I think they usually say that you're talking metric probably. What a foot is in metric?
Thanks to Napoleon.
It's usually amma is considered to be 2 feet.
2 feet.
Yeah, which is like 2/3 of a meter, right?
A meter is
about a yard.
3.3 feet or something.
Yeah. So it's about
A little bit bigger than a yard.
Okay. So you figure it out however you want. Anyway, without taking out the calculator right now. Anyway, so that's Esrim. The Pesach because the normal opening is it says the normal opening for a hall, like a palace, is 10 amas. The Kaimelan Linian Eruv. Because the Eruv is talking. The Eruv says that's the normal opening you're supposed to have. If it gets wider than that, it's really a problem. So you have to go lower. Because if something is wider than esamas, then it has to be reduced. Because if it's more than that, it's considered to be more than 10 amas. It's considered like a pirza, like something that you break the wall, and that's only not a tikkun. Because goyver hasecha ala gif. As a koyach Hashem mekabel miskulis doim lepesach sheyisiach yoysim v'masherui. He's saying that when you're dealing with this type of seichel that's totally in charge, totally in control, and it's misgaber on the goof, it's bigger than normal. It's not a normal opening. It's a kli kibbul. It has a possibility of absorbing an abnormal amount of information and intellect. It's an intellect operating on a whole different sphere. It's not normal anymore. So he's talking about something that's bigger than Esser, it's even 2 times Esser, which is 20. So then the later generations is talking about is compared to the opening of the Heichal. So that's a normal opening, is 10 amos. And that's really exactly what it's supposed to be. It was more like the seichel is supposed to be. It's not. You can't expect to be. You can't expect to be on the level of the Rishonim. That was like already it was a gift. It's like they say that the tzaddikim that we had after the war were like not normal tzaddikim. They were like tzaddikim that should have come from a few hundred years ago. They were like to build up the generation after the war when everything was destroyed. Took a tremendous amount of extremely high level. So you got extra amazing tzaddikim in that generation. So here, to build up the entire framework of the whole Tosh Peh, you needed people on an extremely high level, and that was the first generation. The second generation was already the way it's normal, sustainable, the way it's supposed to be, even though it didn't remain on that level either. So he says that's like the Heichel. It's open to be the Kabbal. So here he says that the Seichel was not really goiver on the Guf. He didn't take total precedence. But it was the proper, sustainable relationship between the Guf and the Seichel. The Seichel was not totally dominant, but it was a reasonable balance. I'd say that they were balanced. Not more, not less. So now he's going to say that there's a little bit of steer in this interpretation, because because the fact is the Heichel, which has the larger, which has the smaller opening, has an advantage, has a higher level in a sense over the Ulam. It's a very difficult explanation here, but he brings along
by the Kedusha level.
Yeah, that was closer already to the Kedusha. So really, it would seem that if you're talking about the Rishonim were on a higher level, they should have been in compared to the Heichel and not to the Ulam. So how is it that he reversed it because of the fact that the Pesach was further open by the Elam? It was more external. So you think that was further away from the Kedusha. So how does he explain that? Again, he boils down to that there are these three levels of Kedusha that he's going to talk about, or whatever, that is very central to the whole thinking of the Maharal. We'll see if we can understand it a little bit. So according to this, it should have been the larger opening should have been for the place with more Kedusha. Says the Heichel Ilam in the Beis Mikdash was like that. When he's all seichel, so you say that his seichel is very, very wide. So that's like the ilam, which is very wide. But the Heichel has a bigger level of Kedusha, even though it has a smaller opening. So the Heichel the Ulam had to have a larger opening than Asura. That this level of Kedusha always is found on this level with this width in the world. But the Heichel, which was on this higher level of Kedusha, was the way it's supposed to be, and the level of 10 Amos instead. The Heichel is a higher level of Kedusha. Kedusha Zois nimsa ba'olam lefi ha'rui, masha yad nimsa b'tachtoini masha heim bali give. In other words, let me see what he says here, because it's a difficult concept. It's not so easy to explain. I'm not sure that I understand it completely either. But what he's saying is that the Kedusha has to be in this world has to be that's sustainable has to be in a balance.
And like the Ulam, like the Heichel. The Heichel has a higher level of Kedusha, but it's a smaller
Pesach, but
that is a wider opening but less holy.
Right. So he's saying that I don't think he's saying that the Rishonim were on a lower level of Kedusha. What he's saying is that in terms of the Pesach, there is we're seeking balance. We're not seeking to sustain something on this huge level. That's not what we're shooting for. That's not what we're expected to look for, and that's not what was intended to be. It was necessary for a certain period of time, apparently, and then it was intended to go back to a more of a normal level that was sustainable. So he ended up with a level that was, the first generations had to be. What he's saying is like this. This is maybe one way of explaining it. In other words, rather than saying it was a lower level kedusha, what we're saying is that Rishonim needed for a short time to have that higher opening, that bigger Kabbalah. It was. Explain this. It was something that was like specific for their generation. It was a matana. It was a gift, and the balance that we're really seeking as being a sustainable thing is the normal. That's the norm. That's what we're moving towards. So you don't want to put up on a pedestal the thing that's abnormal, because that's something that's not a model for us. The model for us is something that's balanced. So that is why the Heichal is a smaller opening, really.
So we should find ourselves in the Heichal or the Ulam, because I'm trying to figure out. On one hand, the Ulam has a wider opening, so I feel like, according to the first part of the introduction, is that we should be receiving, we should be more accepting. The larger an opening of something, the more it can receive.
Right, but what he's saying here basically,
it's a more contracted opening where it's more holy, that the Chacham of that generation didn't need to have such a big opening to get it. They needed a small opening to contain deep, profound concepts that were on an elevated level. I'm not sure. I'm confused with what he's. Which one is he trying to go for?
What I'm saying is that first of all, what you're talking here is the relationship between the mind and the body. So what he's saying is that we can't expect ourselves. We can't strive for a condition of Hilasota, which is that wider opening. Because the wider opening is not something that we can expect ourselves to attain. It's not attainable. It's not something that is normal. It's abnormal. It's not in the normal frame. So therefore, what we're shooting for, what we're trying to aspiring to, and what we're trying to elevate ourselves to, is the level of the balance, which is that they should be equally able to live together. One shouldn't totally overweigh the other one. There should be a balance there. So therefore, that is going to the higher level. That's like we're ascending to the level of balance, as opposed to thinking, they had this tremendous sefer, so therefore we should strive to have this tremendous sefer. That's not what Hashem is asking from us. That's not what we're trying to do. And halavai, we can get to the level of having a balance, because what we're at, as we're going to say, is our group is totally in control. So it's enough to seek that balance, and it's even questionable. In Mashiach Tzatan, if we're going to be looking for, at least as long as we're on Earth, if we're going to be looking for that level of being cool sefer. The Maharal is very much into geometry, balance, sustainability, things that can exist in the world, derech hamemutza, imabrias. He's into a lot of these concepts. He's not looking for people to have these high, wild, pie-in-the-sky ideals.
It's interesting that he was a Kabbalist as well.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. He was able to keep that perspective. He wasn't into going, all out. And I think the most successful Kabbalists, that were sustainable, you could compare to the Rizal. The Rizal had this fantastic, Kabbalah. He was able to makabel, huge things that no one else was able to make, and he only lasted for 30 years. It was not sustainable on that level. So if you want to get something which you can live with in this world, it has to be something that's a little bit scaled down, but it's something that is balanced. So that's basically what I think it's very much. Okay, so aber Pesach HaHeichel היה רואי שהיה אסורה אמה, כי קדישס HaHeichel יויסה במעלה, וקדישס זויס נמצא באוילם לפי הרואי, מה שיהיה נמצא בתחתונים אשר הם בעלי גוף. We're in this world, we have a guf, so we have to deal with that. With the 10 amos is good enough. Lo היה גויבר הקדישה אל יוינה זויס בפרצי יסיירה. That the kedusha is not goiver. It's not taking over to that extent. It has a certain place. It has a certain balance. It's something we can live with in this world. Loi Hoya Goiver Gam Ken Hagif Lema'it HaKedusha. But on the other hand, the body was not Goiver so that it was reducing the amount of Kedusha. It was in the proper balance where the Kedusha could continue to exist and it wasn't being dominated by the Guf either. So it was just like peaceful coexistence. It was like they were able to maintain that some it was measured in a proper way. The Imken Kedusha Ilam Shehi Kedusha Lamata. This is the Kedusha in this world as opposed to Kedusha in the Elyonim. Haya Nimsa B'Roichav Yosef V'Haya B'Pesach Esrim Amon. So it comes out that the Kedusha, the Ulam, which was down here, had even a wider opening. Esrim Amon. Ki L'Oilam HaKedusha Elyonim She'ein Shayach L'Givron HaTachtoinin Eino Goyver. So people that are able to accept this superior intellect, the Kabbalas Hakadisha Ha'elokis, it's really talking about the same thing. Kedusha and the Seichel, in terms of, I'm not saying every intellectual is as Kedusha, but he also talks, I think he talks about this idea of the Seichel Lokis and the Seichel Anoishis. There's an idea of a human Seichel and a godly Seichel. So it's two different aspects, but in terms of the godly Seichel, this is kind of what we're talking about here. You're bringing in it's the same thing as Kedusha, your ability to be Makabel. The Kedusha is similar to the same thing as the intellect. The Oma Va'ani Kenekev Machat Sedukis. We're talking about that we're like this pinhole or whatever. He said, I have a needle. Perish, Ki Madregas B'nei Udam, Ato Hi Madregas HaShlishis. That now we're on the level of this third level.
I don't think we have that.
Huh?
I don't think we have the rest.
Oh, really? I did. No, I didn't. I thought I got the whole thing. All right, where are we holding 10 minutes?
I have to leave in a minute.
So we just got to where we were only last time. 8:18.
I can hear you out without having the paper.
Okay, 8:18. Yeah, we'll see. We have still time. Is it
Thank
8:18?
you.
Oh, it's 9 o'clock.
It's 1 minute too.
Do you want to go on or I'll go on? You want me to go on? Or you
Go on.
Go on? Okay. The Omar.
Bye-bye. Good night. Thank
Okay.
you very much.
See you
Shalom
next week,
Aleichem.
Mitchell.
Bye, Amnon.
Well, next week will be Monday again.
Monday, yeah. Is it only half an hour? You can make it longer, or?
I can make it till 9. 9:15. I could go till 9:15, I guess.
Better start at 8:30 or 8:15?
8:15, I think.
8:15 is good. Okay. Sure.
It's a little bit tight.
Bye.
Okay, well, the page keep Madregas B'nei Udam, Ato, Madregas HaShlishis. So today we're on the third level. Shegoiver Haguf Ala Seichel. That now the body is taking over the Seichel. Kashir Kabbalas HaSeichel Kashir Pesach Machat Sdukis. And the ability, the measure that the Seichel is able to receive is like this measure of an opening of a pinhole. Whatever. She'aneked hazeh he the tachlis hakatnas masha efshe. It's like the smallest opening that you could have. It's like it's mamish the minimum. The ein neked yosakutin, that there is no smaller hole than that. So I don't know if maybe the island of needles is very small. I don't know if there's something smaller than that. But the kach the doirus, I don't know if there's a mitzias of a smaller hole. You could say this is smaller than a eye of a needle. The kach the doirus ha'eli. Goiver hagif al seichel, the loy nimsa haseichel rak ma shehi michrach liyos lefit tziras ha'udam. This is a very interesting statement. He's saying that in these generations, the body is so taking over the seichel that it comes out that the seichel itself is the minimum that it could be for a person to still be considered human. It's that bad. It's like it's mamish
What
minimal.
separates us from the beast?
Right, exactly. That's what it is. We have enough seichel to differentiate us, and there's a riot to that because when you look
What's
at
the fashionist for? What is he going to give us some physics?
all right, it gets to that. It does get there.
I thought this was chizuk. I feel so good. So good.
You feel like you're normal, right? Like everybody else.
No. Go on.
Anyway, so what he's saying is I was just being a riot to that, is that all the psychologists today, all the chachma and the science and everything else is comparing us to animals. They don't have a problem thinking. I just read an article today that there was a guy talking about analyzing what's consciousness. And he wanted to say that the consciousness between a dog and us is not that different. They're almost the same as dogs.
Crazy how backwards the world is.
But what I'm saying is that
they're not even ashamed of comparing themselves to apes. They take pride in it.
Right. But what I'm saying is the interesting thing is that they're even able, that a Goyish cup, the secular world, is able to, doesn't have a problem with thinking of us as being simply a little bit more advanced than the animals. Whereas in previous generations, they didn't have nobody would think like that. They're going also saying, there's a person has a mind and philosophy, and he can figure things out and all this stuff. Now today, it's like, what's the difference between us and the apes? It's almost no difference.
Animal rights.
Yeah.
And they're serious.
Yeah.
They'll kill for animal rights. They will kill.
Their rights are more important than that.
Ocasio-Cortez.
Until they figure out that the vegetables also have a seichel, and if we are eating vegetables, they're in pain, And
millions, you're hitting it in the head like millions starve.
Anyway, ki ha'udam b'ma shehi udam. The fact that a person is human, it's impossible. He's not going to have seichel. To be called a human being, you have to have some level of seichel. That if it wasn't for that, he'd just be another animal. So it's because the seichel is on the level where it's just there to be able to be called a seichel. It's the minimum size that it could possibly be. It's the minimum that it could be to be still called intellect. In other words, any lower, and it wouldn't even be called intellect. It wouldn't be called something that separates us from the animal. That's our level. So what does he mean when he talks about this stake that's put into the wall? Is the deep understandings and wisdom. The person can't possibly understand those things on his own. It's extremely important. There are certain understandings and asogas and comprehensions that we cannot develop on our own. We have to receive them from somewhere else, from a higher source, because it's on the level of profundity. He can't comprehend it on his own. He has to get that from a teacher. And his teacher has to also receive those from a source. We can only come to the level of understanding them little by little. We can't even expect to understand what the Rav is telling us only after a period of time, because you grow into it. As your mind expands and you mature, that's why, again, people that go off there, the problem, the tragic thing about it is that they're looking at their lack of comprehension of basic things of Yiddishkeit on the level they are now, and then they're cutting themselves off from being able to grow and understand over time. So that if they would allow themselves to get older, if they just have the patience to say, okay, now I don't understand it, but maybe in all the 5, 10, 20 years I will understand it, or I'll understand it better than I understand now. What?
Or they had someone that could help them explain.
Right, exactly. So you have to meet the right person, but that's where Emunah comes in. You have to have the faith, the trust that eventually, things are going to become clearer over time, and because there's seichel behind it. There's a deep seichel behind it.
For them to realize their hidden potential that they weren't able to see years ago.
Exactly. But because they don't have that humility and they don't have that bittul, so they end up just dumping the whole thing and not giving themselves a chance to ever grow.
In a family of 10 frum children, from birth, they fully expect now 1 in 10 to go off the derech.
Yeah,
it's accepted.
That's
1 in 10 will go off.
Although that's a lot better than my grandfather's generation, where it was like 5 out of 6 would go off the derech. It was maybe 1 in 5 or 6 that stayed. So that was normal.
I don't know. There was probably a difference between the motivations going on from our generation to that generation.
It's true. It's much more economically
seems a little bit right. Our generation seems a little bit more obvious. Their generation was like, yeah, it was just hardship or it was just lack of.
But on the other hand, a lot of it was ideology. The communists,
There's a lot of.
secular Zionists, and
We just learned this week that there was a big thriving yeshiva. Somebody left a copy of Trotsky's manifesto. The next day, the yeshiva was empty. The whole yeshiva went communist and atheist overnight. Yeah, but this is around 1920. Overnight, an entire from yeshiva, communist and atheist.
yeah, it was amazing.
It can happen. Don't say it can't happen again. It'll be something new, though. Something new.
Now, the only difference is between now and then is because, like you say, the sefer has become so weak today that people aren't even interested in ideologies. There is no ideology. They have nothing to sell. There's nothing.
It's more pursuit of physical pleasure.
Exactly.
They don't care about ideology. They don't
So again, it's also so in the past they were justifying and rationalizing the ideologies on the basis, but it still became an intellectual thing. But it was still becoming from the goof, right? Because what was communism? A way to make people more successful and more financially, so they should have more for the goof.
It sounds great. It has the word community, except it's lacking God, which is the key to.
A lot of realistic thinking about human nature is also lacking.
Right.
But the point is that they made it into ideology, so at least it would be able to satisfy the seichel. Today, they're not even looking to satisfy the seichel. They get into these, all these addictions and pleasure things and everything else, and technology, and it's just clearly just for the sake of the goof. And then they feel trapped by it. I was talking to a secular young man, and he lived like in conservative day schools or whatever. And I was talking about the state of 20-something, and I was talking about the state of the world now with all this, the social networking and all this stuff. And he was saying it's terrible. It's like they're expected to and required to keep up with everything going on, but it's totally dominates their lives. And it's like
They don't have real
straitjacket.
friendships anymore. And that's the saddest thing. Social media was a method to connect people. Meanwhile, it has distanced people.
But the
they don't bother going outside the house.
But what it is, the lifestyle itself has taken over their minds, so they have no freedom at all. They're tied to it. I've read numerous articles about this.
The sad thing is that it's also a very vain society. Like Shalom El Salakol Hevel, that was speaking of vanity. This narcissistic culture which is being bred today. Selfies, everything's about the self. It's becoming like they're worshipping themselves rather than anything.
Exactly. Yeah, that's the state of the nation. Anyway, so okay, give me a minute. Should Rabbi Gam Kikiba? Ef Shaloni La Amoid Aleim Rakna Apna. The min Eli Amiskulis Hamikus. Nichmas B'Libeini Rak Moishi Yechanes Hayitad Be'etz Kusha. So these kinds of deep understandings, profound, intellectual things, can only enter our hearts like the stake goes into it goes into a hard wooden wall. You have to go find a place in the wood that's a little bit weaker and it's able to receive the stake that can be driven into it little by little. So it's another thing. He says, it's an amazing point. He's saying that just as you have to find like a weak spot in the wood where the stake can penetrate, he's saying the same thing with our hearts. We have to find some place that there can be like an achiza, that we can actually, some aspect of this deep thought can enter us, and it's not the ikar. We're not going to be able to get the ikar. The main point we're not going to get, but some aspect of it, even a side aspect that does resonate with us, so to speak, that we are able to in some way get our heads around. So that we'll be able to enter, and then from there we'll be able to branch out and get deeper and deeper. But the main thing that it's trying to get across is not going to get in. At least not right away. It's going to take a lot of time. It's a very interesting idea. But what that means is that just because you don't get the whole point doesn't mean you should just forget about the whole thing and say, this is too high for me, or this is too deep, or whatever. I can't handle this. Look for that aspect of it that you can handle. That aspect that does find some kind of entrance into your own mind on whatever level you're at. And then little by little you get into it.
Like once there's knowledge sort of penetrates, even the tiny opening, from there it will expand.
Right. Because that's the idea of when you're driving something into a wall, it takes time. It's like a process, and it doesn't happen all at once. And it's a hard thing. So you have to again knowing where you're holding. Don't get frustrated with something, just because the first time it doesn't win. Either you reject it altogether, if you say this doesn't apply to me, or you say that I might be able to. You could say you can either reject the concept itself and say it's b'chlal not correct, or because I don't understand it, or you can say that it's not for me, so therefore I won't have anything to do with it. That's not the proper approach. The proper approach is everything is shaykh to me. It's part of Torah, therefore it has some connection to me. But I'll get out of it now what I can, and little by little I'll expand to encompass more of it. He says, but whatever we get is not going to be at the beginning. You're not going to get the ikar of it. The hoisi for the ruba, the ananka, it's ba'usa the key to the svura. So we're like the finger in the wax. It says here. The finger in the wax. So these are already concepts that we figure out on our own. Things that we're able to understand. We build a whole building to come up with our own understanding of something. It's like maybe dover, dover. You understand one thing from another. The Ein Tzurich is like Kabbalah's Rav. So that you don't have to have a Rav to give it over because you're building it on your own. So that because you don't know for sure that that's true, but you are using your intellect to be able to take it to the next step. Right? So that's Svura. So he did the Etzba Bekira. The person is putting his finger into the wax. Even though it has made some kind of impression there, it's indented somewhat. You can still move it around to any direction you want. You can have it's a little bit in there, but it's going this way, that way. But it's not like a stake that's driven in and you can't move it. You can move around your finger to wherever you want to go. So it says in other words, it's that our svura on our level is not something that's so clear that you have to hold, that you have to agree to it, and that you can't just move around wherever you want. It says that it's very flexible. It's like because it's not mukhraf, it's not something that for sure has to be that way, because we can't build. We don't have the power to build that kind of a strong svura. It's not so clear. So therefore, we can see it that way. We can see it that way. But it's not. The kinds of svuras that they used to make were like you couldn't argue with them. It's like you bring this and this and this and this and this. That has to be.
What he's speaking about is between objective truth and subjective truth. The finger in the wax can be swayed by the person's subjective feelings about the truth, whether it suits his needs or not.
Right.
The objective truth in their time is like, this is the truth as fact, and there's no me in this truth.
Exactly.
It's just the truth.
Exactly. Right. You couldn't argue with it. It was clear to a person. Once you explain it to them, they have to admit to it. This is what it is. You can't argue with it. But today, it's everybody's like everybody else because it's my word against yours. I think this way, you think that way. All over the place. It's not a strong svura. Something that you can't just go anyway with it. The hoisi v'rashi anaka es busa v'bil shikha, and he said, and Rashi adds to that but we're like the finger in the bore in the cistern for forgetting. She'ena chachma sha'uni masigin oimedes buni shelo yelo hasura b'kalas. That when we learn something, it's not so ingrained in our minds that we can't get it out. That is stuck there. That is going to remain there. On the contrary, it's raka omeres bunika etzba bira she'ein the etzba devekas l'sham. Your finger is not. You put a finger into a bore, it's not connected there. It's not.
You don't
It's nothing
draw that
to.
much water out with your finger anyways. Everything drips off afterwards.
But it's not just that. It's you could take it out immediately. There's nothing holding it in there, right? It's the same thing with the whatever seichel we get. It doesn't stay there. It just can fly away, in the next minute. It's not. You're not committed to it. It's not something that you can remove yourself from it so easily. So it's really not even called Kabbalah, because once you got something, it's not permanent. It's not going to stick around. It's just going to get rid of it. So what does it all mean? Remember, this is Rabbi Yochanan talking about his own generation. So he says that he's saying that they took on the guilt themselves. And they didn't try to make dimyonis and think, make themselves out to be bigger than they were. They were honest about where they're really holding. Shenefesh ha'udam he chaser min harui. That when a person admits that he's missing something that is appropriate for him to have. In other words, he really should be on that level of balance between seichel and guf. And the fact that he is not able to maintain that is something he has to be honest about. That I'm not on the level that I really should be. That in the past they were. That it's getting worse and it's going away from one generation to the other. It was only 2 or 3 generations between Eluzah ben Shemiah and Rabbi Yochanan. So it wasn't even like a huge expanse of time, and the seichel got so much worse. It went to such a lower madriga, and it was in a relatively short time. Rebbe, Hayal Tamida Sharei Eluzah ben Shemiah, Gedisa the bonus, he goes through the generation of the Yochanan, Hayal Tamida Sharei, Gedisa Perakeli Treifus, Shmaita the Gedisa. So he says you can trace the doors. It wasn't very long. But it was a maximum 2 or 3 generations. So what about from then till now? Right? If they lost so much in the level just in 2 or 3 generations, from all that time till now, what happened? The whole earth dried up. There's no moisture in Chochmah. It's like this comparison to moisture. It's like a dry desert, which is what Chochmah is now. Rabbi Yochanan didn't leave anything for us to get any worse. It's like he's already at the bottom.
That was
where
really
we're supposed
so
to go.
high.
Exactly. It was so high and it was so long ago. So that's talking about how little is our sefer. Hasiba that the words of the Rishonim is like a closed book. And even more than that, the place they're talking about the chusa, about their chachmas, is like hidden from us totally because it's so deep. Even we understand a little bit what they're saying. You shouldn't think that even if you do understand something, that it's even getting to the end of it. I mean, so the end is closest to us. We're not even getting to the closest part or even to the middle of it. We're not getting anywhere into it at all. We're just scratching the surface. If I hold it abay, then I'm going to get him like more. Well, he should go to abay all that's made. We don't need nothing left. The kach asher nimsa b'divrei rishonim devorim v'choikim in adas and sefer asher netiyah. So when we talk about the words of the Rishonim, that they're so far from us in terms of das and seichel, that in terms of what's built into us, the yaksha the daitan achshevet zar al Rishonim. So then we start to question them and think that that we're going to judge what they're saying in terms of whether it's valid or not, or whether it's really deep or not, and try to evaluate with our seichel what they said. It's foolishness on 2 counts. First of all, we don't understand their chachma to be able to even understand what they're saying. The Yisachar Ba'atzmain is also being foolish about himself to think that he's on the level to be able to make judgments about the validity of what they're talking about. He thinks himself as being an intellectual, like I don't even know what I'm talking about. If he was a chacham at any level, he would realize that this is the level of the door. Our generation is just not on the level to be able to understand what they're saying. So he says, if we say that if we admit that we're on such a low level that we can't understand anything, and we're not chachamim at all compared to them. So then it's only going to be foolish on one level, on one count. Because at least he's not deluding himself to think that he's on a higher level than he is. He knows himself. So that's what he started out saying. He says, at least know yourself. At least then, if you're a fool, you'll just be a fool in terms of not being able to understand what they say. That you can't do much
You'll
about.
be wise in knowing that you're a fool.
Exactly. At least that was, and that's what he comes out here. But that is our saving grace, is the fact that we understand the level that we're on.
Some kind of self-awareness and honesty.
Exactly. You see, he understands his own level, the and that's considered for him chokhmah. As I said before, not too many people are on the level to even understand that. Even though it's an easy thing, because it's close to you. A person should be able to understand what level he's on. The Lord said but he doesn't want to know what level he's on. He doesn't want to be honest about where he's really holding. So that's why even though it should be easy for him, he can't figure it out. He really doesn't want to know what his level is. He's not like I knew is like deceiving himself. He's not putting something over on himself. Then his chesurim is mechaper. The fact that he understands his lack is something that is mechaper. That's his redemption, so to speak.
Mechaper is like an atonement?
Yeah, like an atonement. Yeah, right. And it's also because, in other words, it's like that's chus. Then Hashem is going to be chonin das. He's going to give us das, because on the schus that we are able to see where we're really holding and be honest about ourselves, and that's a painful thing. So pain always is something that's going to happen.
It requires a lot of humility.
Yeah, it's not easy to do, even though it's easy al pi seichel to understand it, but to accept it is difficult. V'zeki hamakir v'hamargish b'chesuna sheloi, harei hi margish v'makir hamala. It's also a very, very deep thing. That when a person feels his own chesurim, it's a siman that he understands the mila of what he's comparing himself to. In other words, because if he didn't understand the value and the high level of what the previous generations were, he wouldn't think of him as being any worse. But when he has an understanding of how high they were, then he can come to it. So that's the idea also of the idea of the Derech Cloud with the Eibishter. The more you understand how inconceivable the Eibishter is, the more you appreciate how low you are in terms of how lacking you are in terms of that kind of shleimus. If we didn't appreciate the level that the Eibishter is on, and that's the problem with the whole door. A person who doesn't have a relationship with Hashem, he doesn't understand that Hashem is totally inconceivable, then he doesn't understand who he is either. If he starts to understand because that's why I came up with this a few weeks ago. It's a shaykh to Paraduma actually. It's a shaykh of Pashat Pura. The whole idea that we don't understand things, that the Eibusher is so totally beyond our comprehension, can only happen if we're trying to comprehend something. In other words, because Hashem created a concept of a sefer and a comprehension, that we should strive to comprehend things. So then, when we realize how far Hashem is from comprehension, we can come to appreciate that. But if we weren't involving our seichel in something on a higher level, then we wouldn't know what it is to be beyond comprehension. Right? So the more you comprehend, exactly,
to realize how inconceivable.
Exactly. If we didn't have comprehension itself, there was no such thing as
incomprehensibility of God.
Exactly. And then so the idea of tachlis and idea shenloi neda is that when you come to the level of understanding how impossible it is to know Hashem, then you start to understand what Hashem is. But if you never tried to understand anything, then you wouldn't have an idea of what it means to understand it and what it means to be not understanding. So it's out of what there is, we understand what there isn't. So the same thing here is because we understand how high a level they were, we can understand how much we're lacking. And that's what's, that's the kapara. The Fika Chaya Hakudas Echitzoran Elav Yedias Hamala Yedias Hamala he could have Yosef Elevi. And then when you understand the level of the height of what that is, then you start to approach it a little bit. Then you start to you get closer to it. So then you can't get in close because he doesn't know what the mala is. So that's the highest level that can reach in our generation. The comparing ourselves to that, we realize our own kasurim. Not like when we consider ourselves to be in some kind of level of understanding. He margish the ismul. He says that a living flesh feels it when a knife cuts into it. And a dead flesh doesn't feel anything when it's cut with a knife, right? If it's dead, but if it's alive, at least it feels something. So the kind of the pain of understanding our chasurim is only because we're alive. It's only because if we have if something's going on inside, but we're not brain dead. V'zeh ki b'mesha ein lo chayim lo yagish b'tzon klal. Nimsa ki hakudas ha'ksoneni hi ha'madrega asher yesh them. Aval kasher anachnu bilti yoydim margishim klal, zeh yigoru l'tesorim b'chochma she'yetz leim. So when you don't even feel the lack, that's this terrible darkness of chochma that we're in the midst of. So he says in Surik like Yizor Mizeh, the Dor Hazeh. So he says that we don't have to remind or warn the Chokma Yisrael in this generation because they're already aware of that. The Kolonegea Bam Yoya Yura Oisokol Yisokal Ve'im Ruchak Midaito Yitin Ocean and Nafsha. I don't know if there was time to finish that because he's going to go in now to who he's really directing this against. The different people who are challenging the Chachamim on various levels.